right. Hey there. So we're going to speak about benchmarking in this session and essentially why is it important. Please don't glaze over when you hear that word. So many people, they're like, oh my God, here we go, benchmarking and goals. And so, please don't do that. I hope that I'm going to make this interesting. But more important, if you don't benchmark, it's unlikely you're going to create the life that's possible for you. If you're not leveraging benchmarks, the reality of you designing your life and truly creating the life that's possible becomes very unlikely, and we're going to explain why that is in this session, and also what you're able to do when you have clear benchmarks that you cannot do if you don't have clear benchmarks. So we're going to make sure you understand how to leverage and how to use benchmarks in this session and essentially why they're important, okay? And so quick note on benchmark and goal. For a lot of people, those are the same things. The reason I don't use the word goal and I always reference benchmarks is because for some reason I find that people's psychology, when they set a goal, is it occurs to them as finite, and it also occurs to them as a pass and fail. So it's like, hey man, I'm going to set this goal of losing 10 pounds, or I'm going to set this goal of saving, $10,000 or something like this. And it's like you get there and then you're finished, right? You get there and then it's over. It's like, whoa, I did that sprint. Now I don't have to worry about it anymore. Whereas a benchmark should just be a step along the way. Right? It's like, hey, I nailed that first benchmark, which means I'm on my way toward now, nailing the second benchmark and the third benchmark. And so if you think of a staircase, a benchmark is just the first step, right? But then because you stepped on that first step, you're able to step on the second step, you're able to get to the third step, and then eventually you get to the top of the top of the staircase, and you get to the reality, that you want to create. Whereas a goal for a lot of people is like they get to that first step and then they stop and then they go in some other direction, right? And so the big difference between a goal and a benchmark is one is often related to as finite, I did it and I'm done, which it's fine to set goals, right? You might have a goal of like, hey, I want to jump out of an airplane and have that experience. I want to go skydiving. Like that's a goal that I hear a lot of people have, right? Because they're adventure seekers. And like once they go skydiving, they're like, I did it. And they don't really feel the need to go do it 100 more times or to master the art of skydiving, although some people might decide to pick it up because they fall in love with it or something, right? A lot of times I have friends and they're like, man, I have a goal of hiking the Grand Canyon. I want to hike to the bottom of the Grand Canyon and back up, and I want to stay down on the bottom for a night and have that experience. And seldom do I hear people come back from an event like that and go, man, I need to do that 10 more times, and I need to hike it faster every time, okay? And so, there are goals out there. Hey, I want to buy a new car. A lot of times when we go out and we get the car we want, we don't immediately go, okay, now I need to go get this next car, right? We enjoy the car for a little bit, or at least most people do. And so goals are again, finite, right? We don't go, I have the goal of getting into a romantic relationship and then out as quickly as I can just to go find the next one, right? You want to find the relationship and you want that thing to work out, right? So the benchmark of attracting your significant other is really just the first step. Like I'm in a new relationship and now we've got to hit some other marks and we got to move along the way in order to create the outcome called this amazing relationship, right? So you can benchmark anything, relationships. You can benchmark financial outcomes or things that we want to achieve. Realities. You can benchmark weight or body goals that you want to achieve out into the future, right? Accomplishments that you want to fulfill on, and so on and so forth, relationships. So again, we can benchmark any aspect of life, and no matter what it is that you're focused on, the process of benchmarking is going to remain the same, and the principles are consistent no matter what you're working with, okay? And so think of a goal, again, as finite, a one and done, whereas a benchmark is a step along the path, okay? And so I'm going to use the word benchmarking from here forward, and we're going to talk about what becomes available when you benchmark that's simply not there if you're not benchmarking, different aspects of your life. And so when you create a benchmark, just by way of naming the benchmark, right? As soon as you name your benchmark, you now have an ability or a capacity which you did not have previous to that benchmark, which is you have the ability to focus, right? And that may seem like not a big deal, but here's the thing. We all focus on something all of the time, and if we were to really pay attention, a lot of the time, the focus of our energy, our emotional energy, our mental energy, even our action, is not taking us where we want to end up. And we often miss the reality that it's not taking us where we want to end up, right? We're missing that opportunity. Whereas as soon as we have a bullseye, as soon as we have a target, we now not only have a specific focus, but we have a way to evaluate where is our energy going. Is it going toward the marks we want to hit on life? Is it going toward what we want to create? Or is it taking us further away? So an example of this, right? Like let's imagine we've got this circle here, right? And there's all kinds of different designs in the circle, right? Kind of like life, if you will, right? You've got, all kinds of different things you can focus on in life. You can focus on the kids, you can focus on their good behavior, their bad behavior, the fit they threw. You can focus on the amount of money you're making, the amount of money you're not making. You can focus on your health. You can focus on how good your health is, how bad it is, the weather, right? You're driving down the road. You focus on all the other drivers. I mean, there's an infinite amount of things we could put our attention on in life, and that's kind of what this represents. Imagine this circle is life, and these are all the things that you could focus on. And so just take a moment and just gaze at the spectrum of life here, okay? And our attention goes all over the place, right? Wherever we happen to be focused throughout our day is where all of our energy is flowing, right? For most people, they don't direct their energy consciously and intentionally. Whatever happens to be occurring in their life, whoever happens to be in front of them, whatever they happen to be doing, that's where their energy goes. That's what they put their attention on, which is different than living intentionally, which is different than designing aspects of life and determining where it is we want to end up. As soon as you move into the process of designing life, you go, you know what? I'm going to focus, and I'm going to go to that blue mark. And so if I ask you to focus on the blue bullseye, the blue mark, all of a sudden you're not focusing on all this stuff around here anymore. You get laser focused, and all your attention goes to that blue mark. It goes to that blue dot on the spectrum. And as other stuff shows up, if I say keep your attention on the blue dot, I could put all kinds of other, interesting things in here. And no matter how full life gets, no matter what's going on, if you're aware of it and if you're mindful to do so, if you know your job is to stay focused on that blue dot, you're ahead of 99% of the population, right? 99% of people get distracted by all the stuff that's happening in their life, all the things that occur day by day by day, all the stuff that you can't even imagine is about to happen in your next week, your next month, your next year, right? The unexpected events that occur, and so on and so forth, right? All life is going to happen, but as soon as you've got a benchmark, you've got a clear benchmark, is what I'm writing here. You've got a clear destination. You've got a clear focus. You have a clear mark to focus all of your energy. And so the big thing that occurs here is you now have the ability to focus. Because if your attention is going everywhere and you're focused on everything, we're inherently focused on nothing. Okay, so again, when our attention goes everywhere, when our focus is on everything, then what we're really focused on is nothing. As soon as we name a benchmark, as soon as we name a destination, as soon as we name where we want to end up, now we have a very clear and concise focus where we put our attention, and now we can start moving our energy in that direction. Energy being emotional energy, our mental energy. We can think about how to accomplish it. We can realize we're not focused there, and we can bring our attention back to that destination. We can start noticing when we're moving away from it and bring ourselves back, and we can refocus back to the mark. But if you don't have a clear mark, you don't have a clear destination, we have the inability to focus. We become ineffective. If you were to take, 1 in 10,000 people, I often say, fulfill and create their vision. If you take 10,000 people, 1 in 10,000 name a vision and fulfill it, right? Name what they want to create in their life and then actually go out and produce that reality in the way in which they intend. One of the big things that 1 in 10,000 do that others don't is they name a destination. The other 9,999, right? They literally never name a destination. They never go, I'm going to create X, right? They don't have a mark that they're moving to. They don't have a destination, and so they end up somewhere. They go where the current of life takes them, which sounds romantic, but in practical application, it tends not to work out for us so good because we end up just engaging in whatever's in front of us. So as soon as we name a benchmark, we get a sense of or name or declare where we want to be, all of a sudden we can start putting our attention in that direction. And if you were to take a journal, right, one of the exercises that a mentor of mine gave me years ago is they said, Joey, I want you to keep a journal for a month, and I want you to just literally write down every thought that occurs to you. Just write it down. If you have the same thought 10 times, write the thought down 10 times in the journal, but don't look to any of the previous pages until the very end of the month. And I got through the month, and I just wrote down all my different thoughts, whatever they were, whether it was I was focused on the to-do list, it was a positive thought, it was a negative thought, it was a critical thought, whatever it was, I just literally thought it, pulled the journal out of my back pocket, a little pad, and I write it down. I was obsessive, right? I'd probably write 50, 60 things down a day, and I did it for a month, and then I went back and I read the journal, and what was fascinating to me was that in my mind, I was focused on an infinite array of different things, kind of like this circle, right? In my mind, my mind was focusing on all kinds of different stuff as I was occurring to myself. So as I was aware of the mind thinking, it seemed like the mind was all over the place and thinking an infinite array of different stuff, different things, different thoughts. But then when I read the journal, I really had like 2 or 3 core themes and a repetition of the same thoughts again and again and again and again and again every single day. And when I looked at the nature of the thinking mind, it was horrific. It was distorted. It was often negative. There was a lot of criticism in the mind. Myself, I was criticizing other people. I remember the mind perpetually saw everything that was wrong with the world and with the reality around me, right? I was constantly thinking about what was going to go bad and wrong. It was like the same theme was just occurring on replay, right, over and over again. And so as soon as you have a benchmark, all of a sudden you take all of this, noise in the mind, and you can start to eliminate it, take the first step to eliminating it, and start focusing your energy toward the destination you want to achieve, okay? That's not possible until we have the destination named. And so once we have a benchmark, right, we've got that, as I said, that ability to focus. Now, as I was talking, about the mind, the other key thing that benchmarks give us the capacity for is context. As I just said, wow, I noticed that there was a theme playing out in my mind, in the mind, and it was never going to take me to that benchmark or that destination that I initially wanted to achieve, which was literally, I want to know peace. I want to know fulfillment. I want to know happiness. How do I access that? And it was very clear that the nature of the thinking mind and what its attention was going to perpetually was creating anything but peace, anything but happiness, anything but fulfillment. Now all of a sudden I could see the need to redirect and refocus the mind so that it started to think thoughts, right, that would produce peace, that had a nature of peace within them. And I noticed other things, right? It was like, man, if I want to create wealth and the way in which I was behaving financially and the relationship I had with money, it was never going to translate to wealth. There was no way that was going to happen doing what I was currently doing. And so all of a sudden I could start to understand the context of spending and having debt. And what I was up to is like, man, this is never trending toward the outcome that I want. And when I said, man, I want to build wealth, and I had the context of wealth in a specific way, I could see I need to do something differently than I'm currently doing in order to produce that outcome. But until I named this idea, this benchmark of I choose to be wealthy, I didn't have the ability to go, wow, I'm going to spend this money on a T-shirt. Should I spend the money on that T-shirt or should I save it? Should I spend this money on a new car or should I invest it? Well, if I want to build wealth and I have that context of wealth, that destination in mind, all of a sudden it became obvious. I'm going to take this money, I'm going to invest it instead of spend it. The bullseye called the benchmark gives us that context to make great decisions. And so the key is to take a big idea, if we want to create something really extraordinary, and then narrow it down and make it as simple as possible. And it really is as basic as start with something big in terms of the outcome we want to achieve, and then make it small, right? So a lot of people, they want to hit a certain weight mark, and they go, I want to lose 50 pounds or something like this. Or some people, when I ask them, where do you want to be in 20 years? They go, I want to be capable, right? I want to be healthy and vibrant and able to travel and do activities that I love and enjoy, and I want to hike, and so on and so forth. So a benchmark could sound like that, right? When you go, hey, where do I want to be, with the body in 20 years? It might sound like full of energy, okay? I want to be able to hike, 5 miles easily as a representation of a 20-year mark physically. So, man, I'm 40 years old. When I'm 60, this is what I want to be able to do, right? Some people might have other aspirations in 20 years as it pertains to physicality. Some people, it might be a longer-term benchmark around finances. You know what? I want to have $1 million invested. And you know what? Right now, I've got zero, okay? So it's like $1 million, right? So you can take any aspect of life and create a long-term destination which gives you a focus, okay? Another benchmark, right, could be I have a vibrant relationship, right? Whether it's a friendship, romantic relationship, whatnot. And you'll find that when you go out 20 years, your benchmarks tend to be more abstract, okay? Because it's a little harder to imagine what's my life going to be like in 20 years. But here's the thing. If you don't give yourself permission to start getting clear about the way you aspire to have your life in 20 years, then you're going to end up in 20 years and wish you were somewhere else. It's not going to be what you want, but if you give yourself permission to just start thinking about it, even though it seems so far away, you create a possibility and a strong likelihood that you end up there, as opposed to if you don't. Because it's a lot of time to build energy and momentum toward a destination. That's a lot of time to build up energy over time, especially if you stay focused on that blue dot. Consistently come back to the bullseye, the destination. Now, once you have your 20-year idea or concept in mind, you just break it down, right? We go long term, and then we go, great, what am I going to focus on short term that just sets me up for that outcome and for that occurrence? And so if we go, you know what, 5 years out, I always like to go 5 years because that's the longest short-term mark for people. It seems like there's enough time to build momentum and kind of create something significant, but it's not so far out that I just forget where I am, right? And so 5 years, when it comes to energy or be able to hike 5 miles easily, it's like, hey, in 5 years, what am I doing? What am I up to? And maybe it's, I'm exercising, right? 3 times a week. Right? And I'm in this routine because that's going to make sure I can fulfill this outcome. And you know what? I'm able to do that 5 miles. And I'm able to run that 5 miles in a certain amount of time maybe. Like I'm going to do 5 miles. I'm going to do a 10-minute mile. So I can do 5 miles in under 60 minutes. Right? So I've got this thing called I'm moving 3 times a week because I'm not doing anything right now. And I can do 5 miles in under an hour. I can run 5 miles in under an hour. Okay, great. Now I have this context for decision-making today, right over here where we're going to get here in a minute. $1 million, just take a guess. I know it sounds weird, but your intuition is going to get very good at extrapolating what possibilities are probable the more you do benchmarking. And so in 5 years, right now I have nothing. If I want to get to $1 million in 20, I've got to get to 250,000. Maybe that just occurs. So you just name it, okay? Just name 250,000. Vibrant relationship. In 5 years, I'm in a relationship, right? And it's, been 2 years. So I've been in a relationship for 2 years. Right now, I'm not in a relationship. I found a relationship, and I've been in one for 2 years, right? We're getting along. We're picking up momentum, so to speak, right? Something like this. Again, there's no wrong destination. The only way to do this wrong is to not have a mark, okay? Is to not move towards something. That's the only way to fuck this up, okay? So if you have no benchmarks, you're doing it wrong. If you put something down, this is what I want to see happen, you have context and you've got focus. Right? And then we're going to talk about action plan in another session. You have the ability to measure, right? To see as I'm moving toward my marks, am I building momentum toward these outcomes or not? If I am, I'm on track. The only way I can know that is to measure occasionally. We'll talk about that again in another session. But then you go to 3 years, right? You just break it down again. You go, hey, man, 3 years. What needs to happen? Well, I need to, if I'm going to hit 5, in 3 years, I want to be able to do, 2 miles And yep, I'm doing the three times a week for sure. And I can do 2 miles in, maybe I'm doing 15-minute miles. I can do 2 miles in 30 minutes, right? It's like I'm kind of moving in a direction, right? I have some mark to move toward. Maybe you do a lot better than you think. Maybe it takes longer than you think. All that's fine, right? So you got this 3-year benchmark, okay? 250,000, man, if I want to be there in 5, I need to get to like 100 maybe. So you just make it up. You just take a guess, 100. But you'll notice that when you relate to, I need to save or invest $250,000, you might just go, I don't know that that's possible. It seems like a long way away. When you go, I need to have $1 million saved and invested, you just shut down. You're like, whatever, I'm buying a car. I'm taking that trip, and I am using the credit card because it's pointless and hopeless, okay? So you need to bring pointless and hopeless to reality, right? That's the point of benchmarking. You got to go, man, here's where I'm going in 20 years, and you got to go, that's pointless, hopeless, it's too big, I just shut down. You got to bridge that to reality, okay? So that's what we're doing. When you get down to 100,000, you're like, maybe I can do that, okay? It's a little bit challenging, but maybe it's a maybe, okay? And then you just break it down again, right? We go one more, and you say, man, 1 year out, maybe I'm working out, I'm doing the 3 times a week. I'm able to do 1 mile, right? And I'm doing that 1 mile in let's say 20 minutes, right? And it feels pretty good, right? In a year, if I'm doing a mile in 20 minutes, I can feel like I'm building up to 2. That puts me over here, and like it's trending, right? $100,000. If I have $100,000 invested in 3 years, in 1 year, what can I hit? Maybe I can get to 25,000, right? Maybe I can kind of, like, if I'm aggressive, I can get to 25. I make 150 grand a year. If I'm disciplined, maybe I can get there. Maybe that's too big. You're like, nope, I'm shutting down. You got to make sure it's believable. You go, okay, 10. I'm gonna get to 10. I'm gonna get a start, right? And then at least I got some energy going, right? And then relationship piece. The relationship piece. If it was 2 years before, we missed our 3-year. So we'll go, hey, in a year. We've got 1 year together, right? We've been together a year, right? And then my goal this year, is meet someone. Meet someone, right? Start dating, okay? And meet at least 2 people a month. I'm going to go out with at least 2 people a month. I'm going to start dating. So if you look out a year, it's got to be believable and achievable. That's the question. Is it believable, achievable? Can I make sense of that? Now from here, we'll build out an action plan, which we'll talk about in another session. But the point is, now you have the ability to focus. Here's where I'm going. These are the things that are important to me. Here's kind of where I want to be in 5, 3 years, and a year. So then when you make a decision right now today, if you remember your benchmark, if you just access it, you just look at it, you write it down somewhere, you pay attention to it, I promise you're going to take different actions. You're going to focus your energy differently than if this stuff doesn't exist at all. And so just play with this. Just give yourself permission to map it. One other point on benchmark, it's not about pass or fail. So if you name these benchmarks, right, and you start moving toward them, and let's say you get to the end of the year and none of these happen, and you've got $8,000, right? And, you are working out once a week on average. And, you've just started dating, but you haven't really found anybody you're that interested in yet. Well, you know what? A lot more is happening than would have happened had you not had this stuff written down. So if that's what occurs, no problem. This just becomes your focus for the next year. And then you just, 3 years out, this is still what's happening. 5 years out, this is still what's happening. And then eventually you're going to build momentum. And then all of a sudden, the stuff that you thought was going to take 5 years happens in a year, right? Things that you thought were going to take 1 year take 8 years. And some of the things that you thought were going to happen in 3 years take 6 months. And it's going to be, kind of dynamic like that. And so your benchmarks are not pass-fail. They're your plan for how you're going to get to your destination, right? If you knew, I live in Colorado, I live in Denver. If I go, man, I want to go to Hawaii, the first thing I need to know is my destination, where am I going? And I need to know where I am, and now I can plan a way to get there. Man, I'm going to drive to the end of the coast, then I'm going to get on a ship, and then I'm going to sail there, right? Nope, I don't want to do that. It takes too long. I'm just going to get on an airplane, at DIA, I'm going to get on a plane, I'm going to land in Hawaii, and that's going to be great. And I'm going to go to Honolulu. I don't know, whatever city I'm going to, right? You make a plan, right? Just because you make a plan doesn't mean it happens that way. You end up at Denver Airport, they cancel your flights, they tell you can't leave till tomorrow, you're in a hotel, right? It takes on a life of its own, as will the journey toward what you want to achieve and fulfill. But here's the thing, if you know where you're going, you're probable to get there. If you have no idea where you're going, it's unlikely you get there. So again, think of benchmarking for those three things. Gives you the ability to focus on something, which means you're putting your emotional energy, your thought energy, you're taking action towards something. You're able to evaluate, is what I'm doing actually going to fulfill what I'm after? Gives you context, good decision making for where you are right now. Hey, if I go and I'm critical of my significant other, is that going to build this relationship that I want, right? If I go in there and start boxing, are they going to want to box with me for the rest of my life? And are we ever going to know the thing called joy and connection? No, I won't. So I'm not going to go box, right? I'm going to go in there, I'm going to show appreciation and gratitude, even though I don't want to right now. Because if what I say I want is a vibrant relationship, well, I need to nurture it with something, okay, that's going to translate to that. You know what? I really want to go to that concert. I could sit and spend the money and get an $800 ticket, or I could get the $200 ticket, and I could save $600 and move toward $10,000. I promise context is going to change the reality of how you make decisions today, right now, if you know where you're going. And then later we're going to talk about measuring. Hey, am I moving toward that destination, or do I need to calibrate? But we'll tend to action plan in another session. And so I hope this gives you a sense of benchmarking, what it is, why it's important, and my hope is that you start today. You don't need to name 3, 5, 8 different places in your life. Just pick one thing that you want to have happen in 20 years, and then give yourself a guess on what happens in 5, 3, and 1, your best educated guess, and just wake up and read it to yourself once a day, and I bet your life looks different in 6 months, right? So 2 things. Pick one area in your life, write out a 20-year mark, a 5-year mark, a 3-year mark, and a 1-year mark, and then write it out on a piece of paper, put it on your bedside, right your nightstand right next to your bed. Wake up every day and start your day with just reading it. That's it. Just read it, and then put it down and go through your day. At the end of the day, read it one more time, go to bed, right? Do nothing more than just look at it, right, twice a day, and I bet you're living differently and life looks differently in 6 months by doing nothing more than starting to put your energy toward a specific target. And so play with that, enjoy it, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.